Tonight on the Game On podcast, Adelaide get a reality check before a much-needed week off. And Port Adelaide go about their business while Melbourne continue to implode. And the Adelaide 36ers once again going all in for a championship. All right, let's do this. Welcome to the Game On podcast. My name's Pete. And joining me in the studio once again is Malcolm. Malcolm, how's your week been, mate?
Busy. Ran a past players premiership reunions, that side of things on Saturday, and we had 118 for lunch at the General Havelock, including 5 players who played in the 1965 premiership side, so well into their 80s. So, and Uni had a win. So I'm still batting 100% when I've organised past player function and big days.
Yes,
so, yes,
you're batting better than some other teams going along at the moment, and we will definitely talk about them a little bit later. Mate, past players, past champions of the club, premierships seem to be the rage at this time of the year. Is it just a case of getting everybody back around the club during, these sort of winter months to try and, urge the teams that are playing to, step up a little bit?
It certainly helped having a couple, probably about 250 extra people there on Saturday. And as Uni pulled clear in the last quarter, the Bob Newell National Anthem got sung, and the full forward for Brighton said to our fullback, "I've got to give it to you. That was fucking brilliant."
Yep. So, that's exactly what it's all about. And and the bar takings obviously would have been pretty healthy on the day as well. And that's, the lifeblood of a lot of clubs, canteens, bars, fundraising and all sorts of stuff like that. So well done to you, and congratulations, obviously, to Uni having a win on Saturday, which is fantastic. Might talk about that one a little bit later. All right, mate, let's get into Around the Grounds.
Around the Grounds.
All right, as per usual, we will kick off. We'll talk a little bit later about the cricket, the SANFL and the NETBALL. Actually, let's start off with the cricket. We'll actually leave the AFL just for a minute. Let's start off with Australia absolutely imploding, and that seems to be the word of the moment, against South Africa in a pretty sort of interesting game, wasn't it?
I want to go through this. I'm angry on the cricket side, not just Australia.
Yep.
The way it is now, the majority of the player, or a reasonable percentage of the players, come from playing in the Indian Premier League.
Yep.
So you're playing 2020 smash and bash cricket.
So do you think that's conditioning?
I think it's crazy in terms of, I believe, now this is the supposed grand final of Test cricket. It'd be the equivalent of playing one pre-season game amongst yourselves in footy and then the grand final the next week.
Yep.
That's what it is. So it's crazy. Cricket, it should be, if it's going to be in England, which I've got no problem with,
I think it's good.
Have it as the major showpiece. In other words, have 2 warm-up games, both countries, pick the 11 best, pick England players, and it should be prize money, whatever you want to do.
Yep. So almost like a festival of cricket leading up to this event.
Because it should be the big thing, not this bit of just bash and smash and come in. And look, I disagreed with Travis's Head's preparation for this past season, but he got the results. You can't argue with that in the end. I still believe he should have played more Shield games beforehand. Now, Mitch Marsh, he took time off for parental leave. Mm-hmm. And look, nothing against that. But he came into the Test. He went from being the player, Australia's player of the season 2 years ago, you're winning the Border medal, to no longer being in the Test side. Now, you reckon he might be thinking, geez, I wish I'd played some Shield games as warm-up games. Mm-hmm. Josh Hazlewood. Now, Scott Boland gets man of the match in our last Test match we played.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Against India. So it's not against Bangladesh or Zimbabwe or whatever. Yep. Against India to win the Border Gavaskar Trophy. Yep. And then doesn't play in this Test match.
Yep.
Now, also, if you go through and have a look at Nathan Lyon's performances over the years, quite often he starts the Shield season quite slowly and builds into momentum for the test matches. So I just thought it was absolutely crazy. And also, Green played some county cricket, batted at number 5 or 6. So they play him in the test side and bat him 3.
Yep.
Again, it's 2 totally different positions. So I thought Australia were arrogant in their selection.
Did they outsmart themselves? Is that?
Well, I think
that sort of falls into arrogance.
They went on a 3-day camp.
Yeah.
Well, in other words, they played golf. They played some golf and had a few beers. Well, I'm sitting there in the end. I reckon we got what we deserved. Now, okay, they only play. South Africa played Zimbabwe. Not top shelf opposition, but at least they played a game and all that. So I think Australia got what they deserved here. They didn't treat the occasion with the respect, and I don't think cricket overall treats it with anywhere near the prestige it should be. It's sort of a tacked on.
Yeah, does the format need to change a little bit?
Yeah, it does, but I'm not really sure how you do that. Yep. You know, they've got point. I understand
it's
their
over
system,
a 2-year period.
2-year cycle, yeah. It's a convoluted, it's very hard. And South Africa actually had a good draw to get in the final. So, but
full credit to them. They
Australia thought they were going to shit in, and they took them easy. And unfortunately, I called it to you.
You did.
Message.
I've actually got the message here. I said, terrible decision, no impact. And then you've written back to me at 10:15 on Friday night. I will predict that Markham top scores to get South Africa home. You were on it pretty early, and that's exactly how.
I wish I had bloody money on it.
And I wrote back, obviously, wow, see how it goes, but that was a big call, and you called it perfectly.
I rate him. Yep. I think his performances, his stats overall, probably. He's made 8 test hundreds. He averages 36, which is still pretty good for an opener.
Absolutely.
But I reckon he probably should be in the mid-40s. I think he's that good, and I rate him. And he delivered, unfortunately. But, I called it, and, I think I called it just as they started batting, I reckon it was.
Yeah, I think it was none for something. And
not many. It was.
That's right, knowing that Australia had about 260 odd, 65 odd, and I wasn't sure about it, and you put me right in my tracks pretty quickly. What are the questions that Australia needs to ask? Because I think all lines need to be questioned. The Marnus one is not going to go away. Is he opener? No. Does the injury to Smith save him a little bit and pushes him back to 3?
There's big questions on Khawaja as well.
Well, this is the other thing too.
Khawaja performed against Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka, totally different conditions against spin bowling, but he got shown up against Bumrah here. Yep. And then Rabada's made pretty light work of him in the test match there. So I think there's big question marks on Khawaja. He might be able to fly to some Grand Prix for the end. He might be available. Green at 3 is obviously a big question mark.
Can Travis step up? Play a little bit higher in the order?
I like him at 5, and I like the bit. He's the Doug Walters to win the game and all that. Yep. And yes, he's caught down the leg side again, and that's frustrating because he does that a lot. Yes. It is an area of weakness which
teams are starting to exploit.
Yeah, they have, and he hasn't fixed that up. He gets too far across.
Yep.
And as I said, I just couldn't work out not playing bowling. I just thought that was crazy.
You led me perfectly into my next part, is that the bowlers just didn't seem to have the impact that they normally do. Has it been a case for, say, the last 8 to 10 years that Australia has relied heavily on their bowlers?
Bowlers got them out of trouble. Now, they bowled South Africa out for 138. Now, if they bat reasonably in that second innings, they set them 400 and the game's over. Yep. 350 plus,
So tactically we lost.
We've just batted really poorly, and Stark made his first 50 in 6 years, actually.
Yep.
Kez was probably a little unlucky on the LB. Just umpire's call. I admit I thought it was going over.
Yep.
I would have given it not out. It's a little unlucky there, and if he gets through to stumps and bats on with
Changes.
Stark, it may have been different.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's definitely going to be an interesting watch. You did mention there that South Africa all bowled out for 138. Australia in reply, all out for 212. That's probably where the game changed a little bit. And then Australia, obviously, or South Africa just chasing down 282.
Well, the bowlers haven't had that extra day's rest.
And they
that's
batted
really
for a
important.
fair while too. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Hazelwood actually batted pretty well.
He did. So that's the current iteration of the Australian team. Now let's talk about the future going forward, because losing this, all right, yes, it's a bit of a kick in the bum. I've got two questions for you. One, where is Australian cricket at? And two, are we going to see some young blood like a McSweeney, Sanger, Constas potentially be mainstays in this test side?
Clayton from Queensland, I rate. I think he's a chance as well.
Yep.
A couple of guys from WA haven't quite gone on with it yet, but I think there are. Trying to think of the name. I'm doing this off the top of my head.
No, that's okay. Sorry, it was a question without notice.
Yeah.
But,
I rate the other. I think there's smoky batsmen around with chance. I think there's some reasonable batting on whether there's enough fast bowling depth. There's probably a little bit of a question. I like young Vidler from Queensland, but he's only played 3 or 4 games so far. He's quick.
Yep.
So that last Shield game before the final on a Karen Rolton flat deck on that first day,
He made it sing a bit.
geez, he was quick.
Yep.
So he's probably a bit unlucky because he's probably in between my height and yours, so he's not overly tall for a quickie.
That is reasonably short for a quickie, you're right.
So, but I do think there's a bit there to work with.
Now, is this symptomatic, and this is part of my first question, is this symptomatic of where Cricket Australia is at right now with its playing stocks across the board?
I think the other problem, it's really hard to judge because the test players basically play very little Shield cricket. You're sitting there and you're trying to judge the gap.
Yep. Is that something that Cricket Australia or the hierarchy could look to maybe enforce a little bit more?
It's just really hard now with such a cramped
Because it's such a cramped
schedule, and the Victoria and the Big Bash and the IPL and
can we see that
leagues.
Changing? Can we, realistically? I think
No,
we've talked about
it's
it
all the
briefly.
money.
No, but let's look at it from a scheduling point of view. If, say, the ATP and the WTA Tour in the tennis can sort of work out some sort of schedule that moves with the summers a little bit more, that is a bit more user-friendly, is that something that can happen?
Yeah, maybe. I just still got my big doubts on it. I just think money rules the world.
Yep.
And just because we're saying that we don't think they've played the test thing with enough respect doesn't mean anything will change.
I'm talking long term though.
Yeah,
it's important long term that for the survival of cricket in general needs to be able to have these players playing at the best venues and the best competitions on a semi-regular basis. And we sort of made mention this a couple of weeks ago where they could have a tennis Grand Slams sort of IPL system where they actually travel around to all these different countries. So we actually get to see the best of the best playing, and it's not a Mickey Mouse competition. And then that obviously has an effect for pushing players back down a level, which obviously strengthens your base a little bit more. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I hope so, but still not sure. Yeah, whether it will. Yeah.
I mean, because we've got Major League Cricket coming up in America. I mean, this is how tight the competition's become, is you're trying to squeeze every little, game and drop out of what you can. But I think there needs to be a little bit more thought about it. That's for sure from my point of view. All right, let's move on from cricket. Let's go into the AFL. Let's start off with Port Adelaide. Port were impressive on the weekend, and Georgiadis had a masterclass of kicking 7 goals, with Port Adelaide fans finally saying yes, but they've been waiting a while.
I admit I watched a half-time, and then the umpiring for mine was just so putrid I didn't watch after that. Still followed it a little bit.
Yep.
Melbourne's ball use, their last kick inside their 50, how that's still so poor.
Yes.
And it's putrid. They don't seem to work together. They don't seem to spread.
They've had 3 years to try and find a forward, and they still haven't found
it. Yeah,
one.
but there's just no It just seems to get it and boot it. You've got Pickett. Kick it along the bloody ground for a while. Try that.
Yep.
You've got the best small forward there is around.
Yes.
Just kick it on the ground to him. I'd hate it as a defender.
Yep. I've got it written down here a little bit later on. Let's talk about it now. The 12-year deal to Kasai Pickett. What were your thoughts on that, mate?
While it seems crazy, it does lock him in. It gives Melbourne plenty of bargaining power. That good luck if teams still come now. And he changes his mind, well, good luck.
Yep.
So, but then you could also argue, is it hampering Melbourne at the moment with Oliver, who's gone backwards, that he's on a 6-7 year and they can't do anything about it,
Yep.
basically.
And he's not playing well enough for him to move on with any consistency.
There's just no power through him. He seems to have slowed. He can't get away from a contest.
Mm-hmm.
So his boots it. He cost the game the week before with a shocking out on the full against Collingwood in the last couple of minutes.
Yep.
Is
that a pre-season thing? Is that
they reckon this year he was great. So,
right? Then it really then is between the years, isn't it?
I'm just not sure he was never overly quick, but I reckon he's lost a little bit more pace, and now it's just get it and boot it. And
has he been found out?
I think so. Yeah, well, even that showed in the Melbourne Gold Coast game where Rao really ran off him and took him to the cleaners.
Yep.
So, at the moment, and Petrarca, I agreed with the comment, I'm trying to think who was commentating, where Petrarca now you can understand the injury he had. He's not going back as physically, but he should have marked that ball.
It might have been Rewalt. Made mention.
Was too. It was spot on.
Absolutely. Certainly something that Melbourne have got to worry about there. We better talk more Port Adelaide because we do have some Port Adelaide fans on board. I've got a couple of messages saying thanks for at least giving us a bit of a shout-out, so that's really, really good.
Yep.
So thanks to those guys watching. But Port Adelaide seem to be back. I did hear a stat tonight, actually, on the way home. I think it was, Champion Data. Port Adelaide, since the bye, have changed their profile a little bit, and this probably gets to, is it a little bit of Ken Hinkley, or is it a little bit of Josh Carr that's maybe instigated some of these changes?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Also getting players back. Like, Horn Francis dominated the first half.
Yep.
But he just missed a few goals. Like, he'd had 20 touches to half time. Now, if he kicks, I think he'd kick 1-3 or 1-4.
Yep.
Whatever, or 0-3, whatever. He could have had 4 goals at half time.
And he spent 80% game time in the forward lines, which is something a little bit different.
Well, he's a bloody hard matchup.
Yes, and that probably leads me to think that he's not quite 100% fit, but they're fighting tooth and nail now to stay in touch with the top 8 to give him an opportunity to obviously launch into the second half of the season. Port obviously have a good chance this week of playing against GWS, but they pulled out one for the ages against Brisbane.
Yeah, whether it's Cadman's breakout game, we've got to wait and see on that. But Cadman and Hogan together were brilliant. So Payne getting injured for Brisbane obviously hurts, and you could tell we were watching that in the background, the General Havelock, and a couple of guys said, I reckon that might be the end of his season.
Yep,
and
it certainly was. Talking of Jesse Hogan, do you think that he's living up to his potential?
Well, he's been a bit hot and cold this year. He actually hasn't had that many games where he, say, kicked 2 and contributed. It's either been
big bags or not
feast
much
or famine a bit. Yep. So,
but he certainly has found pretty much what he's been looking for, it looks like, at the GWS Giants. Do you think that Sydney environment where nobody really knows you sort of suits some players?
It does. There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
Yeah. It just means a lot of them can just go down to the coffee shop and not have anyone come near them. They still don't know who they are.
Yep.
It's different.
So for those, 6'6" guy standing next to you, built like a, brick shithouse, and you probably wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of him. Totally agree. All right, Port Adelaide, do they make finals from here, or do they have to rely on a lot of luck to get them there?
Oh, they do. There's still 2 games and percentage out. Their percentage is shithouse. That's effectively another game. So they need everything to go right, but they're still in it. So
mathematically, they are. The medical room's getting a bit of a workout, obviously, in the last 24 hours. Looks like Horn Francis will come up. Not sure if that's fully right, but it is. But not Georgiadis. Alir won't. And also there's one more.
That could be a pretty important.
Yeah, it could be. There's one more in there as well. I can't think of off the top of my head, but they did have a little bit of form in the SANFL as well. Let's move on to Adelaide. Tasmania on a cold night was always going to be a tough ask against Hawthorn. But the Crows, and we both sort of agree on this, didn't make their job any easier.
Oh, look, I was seething last Thursday night with the Crows announced their side. And I want to really be strong on this. I actually don't know Lockie Murphy at all. So it's nothing against him as a person.
Nope.
Purely as a footballer, and it's not his fault he keeps getting picked. But I just totally stunned when he got picked. For mine, it still shows a huge weakness in the coaching personnel. They don't really still believe in not only in the playing group, but themselves either. Draper had to play for mine. Play the kid, play him. We know that. So, but if they wanted to go the more defensive option, it had to be Zach Taylor. Now, Nix gave Taylor a big shout-out saying about his job he did on Rosie in the second half. Now, you and I were there. I don't quite agree with that. But he gave him a big shout-out. Well, therefore, play him.
Yep.
But to play Lockie Murphy was staggering.
Incompetent, really.
Yeah, it is.
Was
it's unbelievable. And going to watch the 18s carnival, you're obviously talking to people from most clubs. And I had a guy who's involved in one of the bottom Victorian clubs who said Murphy would not be on any other list in the competition. Yep. Now, that's staggering that he keeps getting picked.
Yep.
And I just, I was ropeable then. Mm-hmm. Still am, being honest.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah. I sent you a message on Thursday night because obviously we were both in the same boat there. Draper, Scholl, Jones, Taylor and Schoenberg should have probably been the options before Murphy. I just don't quite understand it, and his impact wasn't really anything in the game at all. That's the thing.
He wasn't the worst player, apparently, because I've only watched the highlights.
Yep.
And then where the highlights are damning is Hawthorn's last goal.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't happen at Collingwood. The structures and all that. So that comes back to coaching. I thought I was watching a grade 4-5 side who ran ahead of the ball like sheep.
Yep, kicking to me.
It was just staggering at the back where you should be defensively. There was no one. It was just unbelievable. Yep. I don't know where Berry went and where whoever was on Gunston was as well. It was two players basically at the back. It was incredible.
Went missing, that's for sure. All the forwards kicked 0 goals, 8 between them. Yes, I know it was a tough night, but 3 tools in those kind of conditions. Did the Crows miss an opportunity there to maybe try the 2 tools and an extra small?
Yeah, yes they did, but I don't quite agree that Fogarty's the tall. Yep. It's not like he's strong overhead. He's more the float mark on the lead. So I don't quite see it so much.
Did you see Curtin as the
tall forward? He plays he's been playing on the wing mainly. So he's your get out, go along the line, kick tall, the get out of jail option from defence. Yep. So I don't mind that. I like a tall wingman. But you can argue that it was too tall for a Friday night, for a night game in Tasmania.
Exactly right. Mate, let's talk Tasmania. Let's stay on them for a minute. Really no movement as far as the stadium goes. Is it a case of that the AFL will shut up shop after promising so much to Tasmania, the Devils, I should say?
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen there.
That's a bit of a disappointment.
Ollie Wines is the other one who's out.
That's it. Ollie Wines, that was the one. Yeah. Do you think the AFL, by scheduling a Friday night game down there in the middle of the winter, was a little bit of a test case for, yes, we do need a roof?
Yeah, possibly.
I know the conspiracy theorists will say that's exactly what it was, but do you think it was a little bit of a test case?
It was actually interesting hearing Taylor Walker this morning on Triple M, where he said, especially at half-time, it wasn't too bad.
Yep.
But, geez, mind you, the Tasmanians, what they consider cold and what we consider cold are probably two different
absolutely.
things. So,
Well, I mean, normally at this time of year, I'm up in Queensland playing bowls, and it's usually 18, 20 degrees, and it's beautiful. And I'm walking around shorts and shirts.
You wear shorts anywhere,
I do, but still 18 to 20 degrees down here, and I'm absolutely freezing, and I'm making sure I've got, 2 tops on and a beanie and everything else along with it. So I totally get it, but just the spectacle of the game when you've got two of the most attacking sides only kicking 47 and 44 points. Respectively, there was a lot of half chances and some rushed and bits and pieces like that, but it was just not too many clean passages of play.
It was just so slippery and greasy in that.
Which is what we expect playing on a Friday night in those type of venues.
Playing a night game down
Exactly right. Where have Rankin and Saligo gone? They've had a very quiet few weeks.
Oh, Saligo was pretty reasonable the week before.
Yep. But not that explosive best that we did see for periods at the end of last year and a couple of times this year.
Again, the condition. I think he has been a bit down overall compared to last year.
Yep.
But it's also the conditions in this. It's not exactly for that.
But he's a smaller play. You would have thought that him and Rankin would probably have a little bit of a night out.
Yeah, maybe. But that's again where come back to selection. Why not have gone with Draper and actually take him on, not this defensive crap.
Yep.
Moronic selection.
Yep, that's right. We do have our thoughts on that one there. I think we've certainly made that quite clear. My big one here is there's no plan B for Nix. It seems like it's based around a lot of perfection, not a lot of chaos ball. And I think some of the stats sort of lead that way. That this is why a couple of weeks ago I mentioned about Brodie Smith being probably a very, very key player. He changes the angles and he changes it with a lower ball, a bit like a Geelong's Grant Myers, how he keeps it quite low and changes the angles. Could be quite vital coming into the second half of the season, but can he cement his spot in that side and not be the sub every week?
Yeah, I thought he should have been used in the 22. I was pretty firm on that, and I think that was another option which should have been used.
All right, Murphy gets selected. Would you expected him to be the sub?
Yeah, for
not that we could have done anything about it, but if he is selected, do you think he should have been the sub on that occasion?
It's just not the 22. I don't think he's a sub player either.
I agree with you.
I don't think he's not the burst player to come on as a sub, so I don't see him as a sub.
Would you call Brodie Smith that?
Well, he is because of his leg.
Yep.
So it's a bit different. He had an impact against Brisbane because he cleared the lines, and even the goal where Adelaide got over the top from the kick in, where Thilthorpe knocked it on, then Walker and Rochelle in the end was through the kick out through his extra leg.
Yep.
They got 15 millimetres on that leg.
Do you want to put teams away early, or do you want to be relying on a role player to get you back in the game late?
Well,
because that's the coaching conundrum you've got is that Matty Nix just doesn't look like he's got a plan B. Whereas Hawthorn, Sam Mitchell came out after half time and completely changed the way they went about it. And within the space of 5 minutes, they basically clawed back that small Adelaide lead.
And again, I come back to the point where I think they showed they don't believe in themselves as a coaching group.
Yep.
So, yeah.
All right, mate. Last question on Adelaide before we move on to some AFL hot topics. Where does the last 10 weeks, or what does it bring for Adelaide, and how many is enough to make finals? Wins, this is, of course, to make finals, and how many is enough to make top 4, do you think?
I think 12 might get you in, 13 will.
Oh, they've got healthy percentage, so 12 would probably...
Maybe,
yep.
Yeah, and then you're still probably looking at 15 or 16. I think this game might really cost them in the end. If they'd won that game, they were 2 games and percentage in front of Hawthorn. That probably would have been enough.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, let's run through some of the other results. Western Bulldogs absolutely taking St Kilda to town.
Yeah, they're a class above St Kilda. Western Bulldogs keep beating up the lower teams and then struggling again. Now, with their
Adelaide does the same.
Yeah, with their midfield, I still rate the Bulldogs. I still think they're right.
Yep,
they're a genuine change. Getting Darcy back just changes everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Bonapelli was missing for the first 6 weeks, so where they're actually at right now is actually pretty reasonable. I totally agree with you. Yeah. Where you sort of half touched on that, where is St Kilda at the moment, mate?
Oh, their list falls away a fair bit. And look, I I don't get to that. They go and recruit Boyd. He plays the first game of the year, and he wasn't their worst player.
Yep.
Yeah, probably O'Brien beat him, but Boyd still contributed. He got second best on one of the for St Kilda on one of the state, and he hasn't been given a chance since. I think, why'd you bloody recruit him for that?
Had a message from one of our listeners a couple of weeks ago saying that he got 42 odd possessions and absolutely dominated, and can't understand why he hasn't been playing him. St Kilda are obviously trying to sell hope at the moment. Is this a good thing, or is this the same old line that St Kilda tend to put out, considering they are stuck in that middle six, and it's not a good place to be? And Scott from Geelong last night on AFL 360 was saying that you've either got to be at the top or right at the bottom, anywhere in between, and it is a black hole almost, isn't it?
They desperately need Phillippo to come on and go and kick on. Look, they got one. Taipu will probably debut this game, so he got a 4-game suspension earlier on in the VFL, which put him back a bit. So he'll probably debut. So let's wait and see on that. And I can't work out that Wilson got dropped a couple of weeks ago. They need him to play. They've got to play the kids who've got ability and that. So there's some selections. Garcia got the rising star and got dropped 2 games later.
Yep.
So there's a couple of things there. If they're broken team rules or all that, not a problem.
Yep.
But
if it's on ability or match conditions against good opposition,
I've got
hard.
some big question marks on some of their selections with who they bring back. The honest battler. It's a bit again the same topic to some extent.
Adelaide 2.0.
Yeah, I just can't quite work that out either.
Yep. Ross Lyon, where do you see him being at the moment? Will the faithful stick with him through this? I hate to say rebuild because they're not really in a rebuild, but if they get someone like, say, Tom de Koning, does that change the landscape or not?
I'm not really sure because they've still got Marshall, so it'll be interesting to see what they do there. They need Max King up and about. Now, Max King is their best forward, well and truly. He hasn't played.
Yep.
He was a fitness test for round 1, by the way.
Yep.
Still hasn't played.
What are we, around 15?
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. All right, let's move on. Essendon getting touched up by Geelong. I don't think any of us expected them, Essendon to be ultra competitive against a very, very good Geelong. But are they getting games into their young ones which will hold them in good stead, say, in 2 years' time?
Well, they are because they've got no other options. There's so many injuries. So they've got their 11th player to debut. Vicente debuts Thursday night.
Any relation to the Port Adelaide Vicente?
I think he is, but I'm not sure what. I don't think it's brothers. I don't think it is.
It's not a common name you would expect. So, but Essendon have done reasonably well considering. Yes, they've been touched up a bit like Port Adelaide there with their 3 or 4 really, really big losses. But, do you see them actually competing in, say, 2 years' time?
At least they're building that way. They have unearthed some youth, and it's then, got to wait and see how it kicks on.
I'm talking about selling hope here because obviously, Essendon haven't played finals for a period of time. They're obviously not going to play this year, but I reckon getting some of those games into those young ones gives them an idea of where they're going to be at. All right, let's move on to the Dockers v North Melbourne. This was actually an entertaining game in the end, with the Dockers getting up by 6 points?
Yeah, I admit it. You got to see there. Look, they've got $2.5 million for those 2 games. Yes, I get it on a commercial side, but then if it's going to be that on a commercial side, they might as well have been the Gold Coast Kangaroos. My thoughts there. Because if that game's in Melbourne,
you're probably picking North, aren't you? And North get over the line.
So,
anyway.
Yeah.
Fremantle got a pretty good run home. They could be a smoky for that top 4 spot as well. So, very interesting there. And the other one was Carlton getting up over West Coast by 34 points. It wasn't convincing against the bye, I can tell you right now. No disrespect for the West Coast Eagles there. I think the coach came out at quarter time and sort of said it was pathetic. And
yeah, I didn't mind
it
that.
was quite refreshing, wasn't it?
At least it was honest, and you could see how pissed off he was. I didn't mind that at all.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. All right, mate, let's talk some AFL hot topics. Jamara is back for the Bulldogs, but will he play this year, or is it too far gone for this season?
It'd be interesting to know what level of fitness he's going to turn up. Surely he's going to have, and that's say he plays it. I think he's still got to get kicked off by the AFL
to play
he's been
VFL.
on mental health leave. So I'm not sure when that's going to happen. So it still sounds like he'd be unlikely to play this week.
Yep.
So it's still a bloody long way back. I think it's unlikely for him to play AFL.
I think he completed his first training session today, I think it was. But how you pull up from that after not doing anything for, 6 or 8 weeks?
Yeah.
We've all seen players come back after not having some time on the track, and generally they're a little bit slower to get going. But how do you fit him in? This is the problem. You've got Darcy, who's come back now from injury, ready and raring to go. You've got Norton up there, which he can ultimately swing around, but he looks lost when he's not that sort of number one target.
Yeah, I think Norton likes not being number one. I think he likes Darcy being number one.
I agree, because it takes the pressure.
That,
yeah. But he still looks lost, a little bit lost, but maybe that's the patterns they're running.
Yeah, so it'll just be interesting what they do. Yep. It's just,
the Bulldogs are definitely blessed with the overstocking of midfielders, and I think that's where...
Well, Liberatore's played halfback flank a bit the last couple of weeks. So.
It's just amazing, isn't it? Coaches under the pump. How many do you think are under the pump? 1, 2, 3 or more at the moment? Let's go through them. Simon Goodwin?
Definitely under the pump.
Yep.
Well and truly.
Yep.
The fact that their forward line still is a mess.
Yep.
It's got me beat.
Yep.
I think he's probably the number one in the
Yep. And we wouldn't have said this 12 months ago.
No. So look,
what about Ross Lyon?
Yeah, I think he'd be under pressure as well.
Yep. What about Alistair Clarkson?
No, I think North Melbourne would still go. I think he's still okay, but they wouldn't want to have another shit year again next year.
Could they bounce next year? Could that be the year that they actually bounce?
Well, there's enough ability there to bounce.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. There's enough. They've had enough high-end draft choices who can play, so it should be. I think they'd be disappointed they haven't won a couple more by now. Mm-hmm. I think they would have been hoping to win 6, 7, 8 this year.
Yep.
So you don't think they're going to do that?
Yes.
So, but yeah. They should be, because they should spike before Richmond, well and truly.
Right, so. You sort of led me into my next point, but there's one more coach I want to put on the agenda, and that's the local coach here in Matty Nix.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but a lot of people have sort of said it's finals or bust this year.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's true. I don't think if they end up not making the 8 from here, I think he's gone.
Yep.
They make the 8 and then bomb and only finish 5 to 8 and go out straight away. Yeah, maybe as well. So, yeah. Yep. As I said,
No, fair enough. All right, you led me into my point there. Who is closer to finals, North Melbourne, West Coast or Richmond?
North Melbourne for mine.
North Melbourne for you? What about Richmond? I mean, Richmond have shown a little bit
they
this
have.
year that looks like they're going to be okay.
And we've got to remember, Smiley and Houghton haven't played yet. And that's 2 top 10 draft choices and the huge... a lot of focus on both those two. There's no doubt the number 1 draft choice. He's pretty special, Laylor, but he did a hamstring in his draft year and he's done it again now. That's a bit of a worry already.
Is that too much loading from a young player's point of view?
Possibly, but I think they've been pretty careful with him, but yet he's still done it again. Right. So it is a worry.
The rigors of AFL football are a little bit different to playing school footy, club footy, local club footy especially. Do Richmond make a play for Harley Reid?
Be interested to see what happens still. I think it's still a distinct possibility. Does
that change their landscape in their jump a lot quicker if they do get someone like a Harley Reid?
Certainly wouldn't hurt. But then they've still got top draft choices this year to go to use before Queensland comes in. And look,
Tasmania.
Tasmania comes in. Yep. And all the so-called talk about being a shallow draft, there's still some reasonable talent to come in. Don't worry about that.
Absolutely.
Dyson Sharp for one.
What about King to Collingwood from the Gold Coast?
Yeah, whether they can fit him in or not will be interesting. Yeah, they might have a crack.
I like where you're going with this because this is my next point is that Geelong have got 2 spots available.
Yeah.
How can they fit that in?
Yeah, I can't. I don't get it.
Is it a case of that they front-ended Patrick Dangerfield's contract?
Yeah, I don't
and
think there's any doubt about that.
That's where the money is a little bit?
And so you've lost Hawkins and Selwood and some in the last couple of years. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
So do they target someone like a Rowell or a Butters?
I don't think there's any doubt that they are.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's pretty enticing. How did Geelong continue to do this, mate? How? Because you have a look at Melbourne, won the premiership, 3 years ago, were on top of the world, everything's going all right, and now they couldn't blow out a candle, couldn't even jump over a cake, couldn't blow out a candle if they tried, and yet Geelong have just never bottomed out. They've never really found themselves in any type of strife apart from the extra salary being paid to some coaches off the books, et cetera, which has all been fixed up now, whether it was good or bad. But how did Geelong...
Adelaide got crucified for Tippett, yes.
How do they continually... how do they continually do it? Do they have a distinct advantage down there in
selling the lifestyle, no doubt about that. And whether there's some players taking unders for that lifestyle.
So is that the same?
And buying them together. Good luck to them if you'd think it is because they go through it pretty fine. It's not the old days of plastic bag of the paper
the old
bags.
paper bag, brown paper bag.
So yeah.
It's going to be interesting. All right, mate. Hall of Fame inductees was obviously last Tuesday, Wednesday night, I think, when we were recording. So we didn't get to see all of them, but we were sort of keeping an eye on it. But congratulations go to some of those inductees.
Oh, look, Ken Farmer, the word was, and I've got to be honest,
you didn't break it?
I knew that about 2 months ago.
And you didn't break it?
Yeah. Yep. Look, and before the night, if you'd said, right, here are the inductees, who'll make the best speech? And I would have said straight out, Peter Daly. Don't worry about that.
Yes.
Look, Dales, we, as in Adelaide Uni, drank at the Wellington at one stage when Peter ran it. Massive character. I'm umpiring a nondescript Div 8, whatever it was.
Yep.
Something came at Smosh West Lakes. Hardly anyone there, and all of a sudden, this limo pulls into the car park. Out gets Dales and a few other things. And I went up and said hello to him at halftime. He has given me the best sledging in the third quarter to the point of that I had to stop at one stage. When you're laughing, your ribs start.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And about the 10, 15-minute mark of the last quarter, they piled back into the limo left. All the players clapped him as they drove off. That's how good it was.
Yep.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
I think it was absolutely classic because I did hear Gary Lyon talk about, obviously, his induction, but the best speech was obviously from Peter Daly, and he said, look, I'd just love to go on a footy trip with him. And I totally agree. I think it would be absolutely fantastic that the stories, obviously, from back in the halcyon days of the SANFL, that's for sure.
Let's just say that couple of years, there was a lot of nights at the Welly where you're just listening to him. We were pissing ourselves.
Yep. Absolutely. Congratulations, obviously, go to Erin Phillips and also Daisy Pearce. I believe, and quote me if I'm wrong or anybody can let me know, I reckon that Erin Phillips and Greg Phillips are now the first father-daughter to be inducted into the AFL Hall of Fame, which is fantastic.
I think I was trying to say it was only 3 or 4 other families overall already.
Yeah,
so it's pretty incredible.
One was an umpiring duo,
it's remarkable.
Pretty special. Good to see, obviously, Greg Phillips obviously getting a little bit emotional because it had been a long journey for someone like Erin Phillips who thought she'd never play football at an elite level, and she got the opportunity and made the most of it.
Oh, John Cale said best junior coach. So imagine what she would have been.
Yeah. Fantastic. And also, congratulations there goes to Hodgie as well. Obviously, another great player. And just a story about him sacrificing for the team and going back to half-back to play a role. And you could see that when he was at the Brisbane Lions.
That game he played for Hawthorn here with mic'd up. Where any other person mic'd up over the years, you thought, yeah, that's right. But that night, everyone was listening to him. You know, it's probably the one time where there were a player getting marked where everyone just sat back and went, wow.
Yep. Can't buy quality like that these days. All right, mate, let's talk this week's games. Fremantle v Essendon, Thursday night at Optus. Fremantle for me. Now, Geelong v the Brisbane Lions, and Geelong have more headbands than the National Netball League, and I have to play that in inverted quotes because Normie sent that one to me, and I think it was a good call.
Not bad.
It wasn't bad. Geelong v Brisbane at GMHBA, Friday night.
Geelong
for me. All right. Saturday, Carlton v North Melbourne.
I'll go Carlton, but I do give North Melbourne a big chance.
At the MCG. Some injuries for Carlton, obviously, coming out today that could put them in a precarious position.
Harry Lemmy made a debut, and about time.
Absolutely. We'll keep an eye on that one. Port Adelaide v Sydney at the Adelaide Oval.
I'll go Port.
Sydney got some key ins.
Yeah, but it's hard to come straight in after that long.
Yep. Port Adelaide obviously got a couple of injuries as well, but home ground. When in doubt, pick the home ground. Collingwood v St Kilda at Marvel.
Collingwood
for me. GWS Giants v Gold Coast Suns.
I'll go, if in doubt, go the home side.
I'm going to go Gold Coast. I think they're going to be around the mark. I think GWS just a bit up and down, and it is a big game. That's exactly right. Western Bulldogs v Richmond.
Western Bulldogs for
me. Buys to Adelaide, Hawthorn, Melbourne and West Coast. All right, mate, we better take a very quick break. We're once again running behind like we have done for the last couple of weeks, but coming up.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde, for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk the cricket. I did play it out of order, but that's okay. We've already talked about that, but let's talk some SANFL with Port Adelaide getting up over, what was it, South Adelaide? No, the Eagles, sorry. Apologies, sorry. Yeah. And in the netball, the yo-yo season of the Adelaide Thunderbirds are still keeping us guessing. All right, mate, let's continue on. Let's talk AFL split round. Should there have been more involvement from the SANFL with some local clubs within their area during this period of time?
Wouldn't hurt. You know, I just think be a bit more proactive. You know, I until I like the idea of some country games and all that, making use. You know, Victor Harbour, Gawler, a game at the new facility at Tanunda, that side of things personally. So yeah,
Adelaide getting up over Central Districts, 78-33. Is that about where Adelaide are at the moment, and also Central's?
I think Central's losing Liddy to Port,
and Harry,
who debuted, and then Harry Grant getting 5 games.
Yep. Well, let's talk about that one there. That seemed quite a. At the time, I hadn't seen the incident. 5 games seemed a hefty penalty, but I did look at it and went, if you're going by the letter of the law, it's pretty bad.
Look, and Ian White is the commissioner, and I've got full confidence in Ian. I personally think he's a class above Michael Christian. In that way, as the commissioner, I think it was quite quite a fair judgment.
Yep, no-brainer. Absolutely. And Port Adelaide getting up over the Eagles there at Albion. Here's my problem, and I know you're going to tee off on this a little bit as well, is that you've got players like McQuillan, you've got Liddy, who's now moved from their SANFL club to Port Adelaide, to strengthen them. Do they make the finals from here?
There's a chance. And,
is that disappointing for someone like a Centrals or the Eagles who are holding
also
on?
The mid-season draft, they pick up 3 or 4 quality players. Now, the other South Australian clubs can't do that.
Yep.
South Australian side. So it's farcical, really.
Yep.
Yeah. And I know we're a feeder league, and yes, it's great that Lily gets an opportunity, and it's a huge pay upgrade.
Absolutely.
Get all of that for the individual,
Yep.
but not for the competition. I've still make the list bigger in the first place.
Yep.
Don't have a mid-season draft.
I'm still of the opinion that we should have the league reserves and 18s both at AFL level and SANFL level to be able to feed that. And your clubs are obviously aligned to potentially some AFL clubs for that to happen. Especially going almost back to the way we were, where we did feed the Port Adelaide club and the Adelaide Crows via half of the competition being split up for those teams so they don't have to move state. It's a big undertaking to be able to have to move, and I think that's why Port Adelaide picked 3 local players.
And you can still make the case, too, that for the teams having a reserve side, has it really helped them that much at AFL level? Mm-hmm. You make a case that it hasn't really helped that much, and then how much better as the SANFL, the players are still at there. I get it that it's easier for the players.
Yep.
But I certainly know, like Mitch Krieg, I know Mitch Krieg absolutely detested playing against Norwood.
Yep, and I get that. There's players that are aligned to their club, and they would have loved to have, played at that club the whole time rather than be upgraded, which I get as well. So, there is a little bit of that goes on. All right, the remainder of round 10, because it was a split round, the Bloods v. the Roosters.
Yes. So, sorry, let's go there.
No, you're right.
There.
At Hisense Arena.
Yeah. So this week I'll go the Roosters.
Roosters for me. Glenelg v. Sturt.
Big game that.
It is top of the table clash.
Yeah, it'd be a really good game. Sturt even. I'll go for Glenelg at home.
Glenelg at home for me as well, and Sturt to have their first loss of the season. Nord were pretty impressive against them the week before, but I think Glenelg on their home deck are going to be tough to beat there. And finishing off the round, Nord v. South Adelaide.
Yeah, so it's triple header at the parade.
Yep.
First game, I've got to be there just after 9 on Sunday. So, yes, It's a long day.
No big Saturday night for you, mate.
Those days are well gone anyway. There was a few of the uni boys kicked on at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll give you the big tip. I was I left before 9.
Yep,
so,
that's fair enough.
Too bloody old.
We're at the halfway point of the season. Just quickly, let's run through the teams. Where do you see Sturt at?
Sturt are very even. Look, Nord should have won that game, but Sturt, I think Sturt, Glenelg, and then it depends how serious Adelaide are come final series. But I think it'll be Sturt, Glenelg.
You've answered the top 3 there. Centrals, can they cause maybe an upset along the way?
I think, as I said, Liddy Grant, and they've also lost another player's been suspended for 3 games.
Yep.
No,
that's okay. And then you've got the Eagles. Could they slip out and Port Adelaide slip in?
Possibly.
Yep.
Possibly.
Where do you see Port Adelaide at?
A lot stronger than what they were, unfortunately.
Yep. Nord?
I think they'll be a little bit better, but I don't think they'll make the 5. No. Yeah, Mihail,
the pronunciation,
Lockerwick. Yeah, he got 3 games. So
fair enough. North Adelaide, change of coach, change of fortune, maybe
a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. South Adelaide and West Adelaide probably out of it now.
Yeah. Yep.
Fair enough. All right, let's talk netball. The Thunderbirds are go once again, but it's a yo-yo season that's kept their fans and supporters on the edge of their seats.
It's been a frustrating season.
It has a little bit. They are currently, obviously, with a huge couple of weeks coming up. They play the Fever away on Friday, June the 20th, and then they obviously play the Vixens away on June 29th. So, look, it doesn't, it doesn't hurt winning, but you want to probably string a couple together after they beat the Firebirds 65-58.
Yeah.
So congratulations go to them. All right, let's get off to another quick break, mate. Coming up, and we've got Ben Higgins Part 2. And we've got Keith Thomas Part 5.
4 or 5?
5.
Saying 4.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking to buy or sell your home anywhere in Adelaide, from the hills to the sea? Meet Gary KRIEVS, your dedicated local agent from OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. With unparalleled knowledge of Adelaide's housing market and a commitment to exceptional service, Gary ensures a smooth and stress-free experience for all your real estate needs. Trust the expert, trust Gary KRIEVS at OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. Your next dream home awaits. Contact Gary today on 0422 071 317 or on email garyk@ocre.com.au. And for more listings, please visit owenscasserly.com.au. Make it happen.
Flashbacks.
Between Jones and the umpire.
I think what he might have asked for is the sweatband off Kirtley's right hand.
Now, umpire Prue has a difficult task here. He has to convince Curtly Ambrose, who's 6'8", that he's to take off the sweatband on his right wrist before he bowls to Dean Jones, who has a broken finger. That could generate an extra yard or two from Curtly, I would think. The thing about it is that if the batsman wants something to be taken from the bowler's hand or arm, then it's well within his rights to ask for it, and the bowler should comply with it, because it will catch in the bowler's eye, as catch in the batsman's eye as the bowler's arm comes over. And that's going down leg side, but Curtly is very interested in Dean Jones' welfare at the moment. Taylor is to face Curtly Ambrose now, still steaming in.
That's in here as well, it should be out. Simmons, and he did well. Didn't he do well? Phil Simmons' feet went just as he was about to catch that ball. And he managed to keep his balance, keep his eye on the ball. And another very good delivery from Curtly Ambrose. This time does see the end of Mark Taylor.
Yes, it was a very good catch at the end, because he did slip. Watch this ball go up in the air, tried to hit on the leg side. Now just watch Simmons' feet here. Just slips, nearly fell over, and he recovered brilliantly. What a good catcher he is. So Simmons takes the catch. So that's the end of Taylor. It's 2 for 48.
It's a chance, and down. That was a very quick delivery from Curtly Ambrose, perfectly positioned. Junior Murray dived away to his right, couldn't cling on to the ball. This is lovely bowling from Curtly Ambrose, and really Junior Murray will be very disappointed he couldn't hang on to that. It was exactly the right place to bowl to Dean Jones.
Yes, he's a tremendous bowler. Away she goes.
Tremendous atmosphere, but the West Indies doing well, defending 239. And he does well, but he's out, straight down the throat. Brian Lara chipped that nicely, but didn't get it fine enough. And Lara takes the catch.
The 8th Australian wicket is down for 187. Dottermate annoyed with himself.
Slow ball, too good. Clearly not happy. Oh, he's laughing. Beaten by the change of pace.
Curtly's very impressed with that one. He likes that. I think he's enjoyed that even more than some of the bounces that he's bowled.
He's swung 4 ways. There he comes. Whoops, in the seam going. Oh, beating for change of pace. Over goes Healy, and then Healy also with a sense of humour. Clean bowled by a slow ball to Curtly Ambrose. It's 9 for 214. This is the final over. Goes in the air, he's got 5, Simmons will catch it. Yes, a great performance by the big man. A match-winning effort by Curtly Ambrose. He picks up 5. A very convincing win in the first final to the West Indies.
What a splendid performance from the West Indians to bowl out Australia for 214 in 49.3 overs. The top score there, Mark Waugh 51 before he was run out again. Alan Border 27 and Ian Healy 33. 214 for Australia, and the bowling figures for the West.
Extra time. Big finish.
All right, a bit of Curtly magic there.
Not Dino's finest moment.
Asking him to remove his sweatband
Yes,
certainly fired him up a bit.
The late, great Dino did not like that being mentioned. Coaching with him a few times. Yes.
Fair enough. Mate, some classic matches, obviously, that we like to play there as part of our flashback segment, and that one there. Bit of a chuckle there with him bowling a slower ball as well, which you don't sort of see too much from Curtly. Well, you didn't see too much from Curtly Ambrose.
Too well played, either.
No, Ian Healy was beating all ends up. All right, mate, let's get into the basketball. The Oklahoma City Thunder currently leading the series 3-2 over the Pacers. Game 6 will be on Friday the 20th of June, 10 a.m. local Adelaide time, of course. So there'll be plenty of basketball fans tuning in for that as well.
There are a few boys following it very closely at the GH on Saturday.
Absolutely. Looking a little bit more locally, Adelaide 36ers have gone all in now with the signing of Zylan Chatham. Obviously involved with the coach Mike Wells, obviously back at Utah there. It really is who you know, isn't it?
Yep, that is the world of basketball, well and truly.
Yep. Obviously currently playing, I think, somewhere in China or
it's
somewhere
hard to keep
overseas
up
as
with.
well. It is. They play probably more than what the cricketers do play as far as that goes as well. So Adelaide have definitely gone all in, haven't they?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Well, so you wonder financially the fact that they sell out the stadium each week, so you probably be able to have your budgeting reasonably accurate compared to a lot of sports. So, good luck to them.
Absolutely. Is it a case of that the playing group is now matching the coaching group, whereas last year the coaching group didn't quite fit with the playing group?
Yeah, let's wait and see.
Is that because obviously Scotty Ninnis, and we know the story behind that, he'd sort of half picked his team, or 3/4 of the way picked his team before Mike Wells was basically made to take over?
Yeah. You can never back the 36ers with confidence.
No. Well, but maybe you can a little bit. I mean,
if
it brings
on
a
paper, let's wait and see. Yep. On paper.
At early stages, you'd say it's probably an Adelaide, Sydney, the two front-running teams as far as their quality players.
Very easy before a ball's bounced.
Absolutely.
The old saying.
Yep, the old slip up on the banana peel. We hope that doesn't happen. Australia qualify for the World Cup. Let's talk soccer.
Yeah,
fantastic, wasn't it? Was it 6 World Cup in a row that they qualified for, which is absolutely a very, very good job.
And the fact they don't have to go to the last stage of the qualifying, which we have come through before, it means you can balance your warm-up games, and so financially it's actually reasonably lucrative potentially as well.
Absolutely. Talking a little bit more locally, Travis Dodd, absolute legend of Adelaide United, has come out today and sort of said that the way that Carl Veart has handled himself through some adversity within the playing group or coaching group is to be admired. And obviously the new coach had his thoughts well and truly on the playing group, well and truly before Carl Veart was out the door, which is disappointing, isn't it?
Geez, the world of soccer. As I said, English soccer, they go through 3-4 managers in a season.
Yep. It's absolutely crazy. All right, let's talk State of Origin NRL. Game 2. Who have you got, mate? Is it too hard to pick Queensland?
It is, really is. But Yeah, hopefully Queensland do get up to get the
third game. Yep.
Live.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk the NRL table. The Bulldogs, the Raiders, Warriors, Storm, Sharks, Dolphins, Broncos, and Roosters rounding out the top 8. All right, let's talk tennis. Traditional Wimbledon warm-up events are underway at Queen's. Plenty of Aussies in action. Great time for tennis players of this time of the year to get excited about.
Yeah.
It is the one time of the year that I think that, a bit like the golf, there's certain tournaments within the golf that you sit up and watch, and Wimbledon's probably that one as well.
The one. Exactly. For me, and Augusta for me is the golf one.
It's the golf, yep.
Yeah.
Let's finish off some hot topics. I should have mentioned it during our SNFL segment that Richard Kelly has been appointed CEO of Nord.
Yeah, all the best to Richard. So hopefully, a few things at Nord. Yeah.
Get them back on the straight and narrow a little bit, which should be fantastic. Mate, good, bad, the ugly, quickly for this week.
The good was running an event, so many people getting through it.
Yes.
And doing okay.
And having everyone's meal done properly. Yes, well done.
The bad was Adelaide for mine.
Yep.
Mine just...
Adelaide coaching for me.
Yep.
Not the playing group. I think they had to deal with what they had to deal with.
They missed goals. They should have been further up. If they should have been 4 or 5 up at halftime, and it's probably game over. So, yes, on the players, but yes, I'm with you. No. Selection.
Fair enough. All right, mate, we might wind things...
And structure.
All right, mate, we might wind things up there. It's been another huge episode. As we like to say, please like, rate, subscribe, pass it on to friends, family,
and
teammates.
Thank you to Craig, Steen and Gary KRIEVS.
Yes, for their continued sponsorship of the program. Really helps us out, keeps the show on the road. All right, mate, we better wind things up there. We'll see everybody next week, and as per usual, we promise to do better.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at SportsCast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.